training programs and their utilization of them. A patrol canine is one that is trained to follow a hot track on or even sometimes a somewhat cold track on a missing a person who has been the perpetrator of a crime, and sometimes their reward is a bite. At the end, they get to bite the person because they're trained to also typically, and I say typically, protect their officer as well, their handler. A search and rescue dog is taught that it gets a reward at the end, be it, tug, playing ball, etc. It doesn't get to bite the subject that was lost.
Well, there's quite a difference, I would say.
So it is. If that's the actual question the person is asking.
Yes, that is what they're asking. Now, somebody asked also, Kay, would a Jack Russell Terrier do a good job in S&R, search and rescue?
They absolutely can. There's very few breeds that aren't suited for it. Their sense of smell is 100 million times greater than ours. The biggest issue you have is number one, the feasibility for the type of search you are doing, meaning out in the desert, a Jack Russell doing an air scent problem where it's working out up to a half a mile from the handler could become coyote bait pretty quick. But a Jack Russell doing trailing work or human remains detection work, which is typically a little bit tighter, closer into a handler, would probably excel at it. The longer the nose is, the better the olfactory capabilities. So we look at that also when choosing dogs for search and rescue. Your flat little pugs have lots and lots of uses, but typically they have trouble breathing. So they're mouth breathing, not nose breathing. If the dog is not breathing through its nose, it is not smelling at its optimal level. So we want dogs that... I'm sorry?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So we look for dogs that have long noses, not the flatter faces, what they call a brachiocephalic dog.
And does
that answer that question?
Yeah, I think you did. There may be something additional that'll come through from the same caller, but when you're describing these dogs, there one additional little aspect of this, and I'm sure you were going to get into it, but I'll ask you anyway, is the factor of weather. And here in Arizona, obviously, that's huge as far as the type of breed, that we have available here. I mean, any dog can do it, get used to the temperature, but give me an example of a dog that probably wouldn't do well here. The most obvious probably being a Saint Bernard.
Well, yeah, and there's other reasons why Saint Bernard may not be the dog of choice for searching in the desert, but primarily it would be its acclimation for the environment, its ability to work huge areas and not become overheated. Part of it has to do with acclimation and conditioning for the environment versus anything else. A bulldog, or a boxer, even one with a little bit longer nose, might have some difficulties just because of the particular characteristics of the breed. I have seen a couple boxers do pretty well doing search and rescue in mountainous areas and areas that have a lot more vegetation and not at the extreme heat temperatures. They tend to have more difficulty here in Arizona in the Sonoran Desert areas. In the mountains, they do just fine sometimes.
Well, listen, we're about to take a break, Kristi, so with that train of thought, we're going to come back here in a little bit to go into not only the different breeds and the temperatures and everything like we've experienced in past cases here in our searches, but for those that want to call in, just remember the number is 914-338-1186. We'll be back in a little bit.
And
Thanks.
Kelly, they can still write us in at hearwomentalk.com, and we'll look forward to answering your questions then.
Great.
See you soon. Bye.
Hi, this is Judy Collins from Judy's House of Oldies, and you're listening to Hear Women Talk Radio on the Zeus Radio Network.
Hi, this is Chris Hillenberg of Hear Women Tell on Hear Women Talk Radio. You can hear us every Wednesday between 3 and 4 Please join us where we get the story behind the story as we talk to professional storytellers.
Hello, race fans. This is Jeff Gilder, creator of RacersReunion.com. When you're in Myrtle Beach, check out my favorite, the Caravel Resort. The Caravel Resort has a golf department and concierge with golf privileges at virtually every course on the Grand Strand, including the coveted Dunes Club.
And ladies, pamper yourself with Caravel's Studio Spa, featuring services such as Swedish massage, heated stone therapy, reflexology, manicures, pedicures, facials, and more. Awaken your senses with the most requested massage and spa therapies.
The Caravel Resort, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, 800-507-9145. Get the best rate on the Grand Strand when you use promo code RACERS at thecaravel.com. 800-507-9145.
This is Dottie Laster, the host of Trafficked, an hour-long discussion about human trafficking in the United States. Join me as we meet guests from around the world and locally who are combating the fastest-growing crime in the world. Join us every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern on Hear Women Talk Radio.
When you're in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, home of Zeus Broadcast Network and Hear Women Talk, there's a wonderful adventure that you should try. Carolina Safari Jeep Tours.
Go to www.carolinasafari.com and check out Carolina Safari. Mention Hear Women Talk and get a discount from Carolina Safari Jeep Tours.
See another side of Myrtle Beach. Get wild with wildlife. Explore history, nature, and mystery on a Carolina Safari Jeep Tour.
This is Paul Truelove on Zeus Radio Network for HearWomenTalk.com.
Police Psychics. Find me.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Kelly Snyder with Valerie Graham and Find Me, Police, Psychics, and More. Our guest today, Kristi Smith with Arizona Search, Track, and Rescue. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but Kristi and the Find Me group have been partnered up since 2002. And one of the questions before we were taken off to break, Kristi, was the the different types of dogs, and we were talking about that. But also, a question came in, and remind me of the question again, Valerie?
Yes, the question from Kay was, how old is too old to train a search dog?
Well, typically, Valerie and Kelly, what we do is we evaluate the dog individually. Some dogs at 6 years old have really, really high drives. They are easily still very trainable and can learn what we need them to learn very quickly. 6 is probably the outside edge of things as far as dogs that I have trained and gotten to an operational status. You have to figure with a new handler, it can take up to 2 years before the handler and the dog knows everything that they need to know in order to be certified. An experienced handler can get their dogs there much quicker. Then you have to consider what is the working lifespan of the dog from there. So if you take a 6-year-old dog, you spend 2 years getting it operational, you got an 8-year-old dog. Depending on that breed, you might be at the end of the working lifespan at that point, or you might be early on. We've trained a couple Dobermans and a couple Labs that, they were older dogs, 5 and 6 when they started, got them operational, and they still had a good 3 or 4 years of working lifespan before they needed to be retired. On the other hand, I've also seen it be very quickly where they only had a year or so. That's why you have to look at that as each individual dog, not as a breed or an overall guideline. Typically, we like to start our dogs as puppies, as young as possible.
Well, and a key component to that, Kristi, as you and I have experienced in the last 8 years together, is if you have a dog that's older and you're not getting the full benefit of it, that it's discouraging to not only, the owner of the dog and the trainer of the dog, but, you want the dog to be as useful as long as you can. And,
Sure.
actually after the dog is trained, the fun is the fun and all of that time that you've spent is watching the dog work, because it's extremely impressive when you see these dogs work and actually get on scent. So, and speaking of that, Kristi, this this training that you're talking about, the 2,000 hours plus, it involves training the dogs here locally anyway in the Arizona desert, is watching out for snakes and all the things that can harm the dog. But it's not only tracking, it's for scent, it's for cadaver, it's water, it's everything. So can you sort of start out and
what
tell
are the
us a little bit?
differences? What do you do?
Okay, well, air scent is where the dog utilizes the air currents to follow scent to a source, the source being either a live human, a deceased human, evidence, whatever we've trained the dog to that source is. Trailing work is following the general path that a person might have taken. If you can envision what the Pigpen from the Snoopy's cartoon looks like, he's got this little cloud of dust around him all the time. Well, that is our scent picture to a dog. We have rafts of cells falling off of us on a continual basis, and as we move along, we drop those rafts of cells off. The wind and environment moves them a little bit, and so the dog follows that path. For a trailing dog, a tracking dog follows almost footstep to footstep to get to that source. Human remains detection dogs are trained to find minute particles, pieces of drops of blood, lots of pieces of small amounts of body fluid, lots of evidence on like a knife, things like that there's human remains on. A cadaver dog is typically taught on larger amounts to find a whole body. An evidence dog is taught to find different things of evidence. A lot of dogs are cross-trained to find evidence along with either air scent, trailing, tracking, cadaver, etc. Evidence would be a gun, something that still had human scent on it but was handled by a perpetrator. Evidence could also be somebody's wallet, a comb, a pack of cigarettes that they touched, anything that might have human scent on it still. And then water work is also another one of those specialty categories, such as human remains and cadaver and evidence, but they're taught to find anything that has human scent on it that's under the water.
And that can last forever, just for the simple reason the water, depending on the temperature, will preserve the body. So the gases from the body, not only the gases, but just anything that's emanating from the body is going to come to the surface. Explain a little bit about that, and especially in a recent search we did in Anacortes, Washington, with all of the tides. But go into the basics, and then I'd like to hit upon the tiny little nightmare when you are dealing with the currents, Kristi.
Well, water work is like I said, a specialty category. Different teams train different ways. Some teams pump scent into the water. Some use divers. The unfortunate thing is most of the time when we're doing a water search, we're not looking for a live person. We're looking for a deceased person. So our team, and I can only use us for an example, I won't speak for any other teams out there, we typically use hair and or things that we're pumping scent underneath water for the dogs to smell, and we teach them on minute amounts. Just as a quick overview, anytime there is any piece of a body there, even if it's a bone, if the dog is properly trained, it should be able to locate it because there is still scent. Now, there are different factors that affect that, both in a wilderness setting as well as in water work. Water work, and specifically, causes a little bit more difficulty because depending on your body of water, you may be dealing with thermoclines, you may be dealing with a riptide, you may be dealing with underwater currents as well as surface winds. So lots of different variables there that you have to factor in.
That would make it confusing to the dog.
Well, it's when you're not so confusing to them, but where you're trying to pinpoint where that and get it as close as possible to where that body is, and you've got all these other variables moving the scent, and the dog is going to tell you where it is getting the strongest scent at that